What's up, guys? Tambo here with your weekly core report. It's Thanksgiving week, and we've got plenty of members giving thanks for their big hits. Let's get to the winners. Our NHL content has been on fire lately. Nadesify led the way with his recent core helping him hit for over 1K. Mangone's core helped MCOMDog42 win 2K in NHL, and M. Levangie used the NHL playbook and premium Discord chat to ship for $20,000. In PGA, Alex used our free weekly PGA show to hit for 1K, while Jaywalkin shipped for $10,000. Just a reminder that a Run Pure Sports membership gets you all sports for one price, including our premium World Cup content. And for Thanksgiving week, we've got a special deal to get you on board. For a limited time only, sign up for a Run Pure Sports membership using the promo code TURKEY50 and knock 50% off your first payment on a monthly subscription. This includes Sabersim packages. You can't beat this deal, so make sure to sign up now. Our NBA and NFL content stayed hot this week. Reminder to sign up to our YouTube page to access all of our great free content streamed daily. In the NBA streets, Magic Muffin hit for 2K, while our guy Mangone continued to dominate Saturday NBA slates with a 9K winner. In NFL, I shipped 2 King of the Beach final seats, along with K. Fallick, who landed one too. RPS member DGAS33 will be joining us in San Diego after securing a seat of her own. Brandon Sports hit for 3K in NFL. Uncle Dunkle joined in with a 14K win. Statler's shipped for 17K in NFL Showdown, and JSU joined him with a 17K Showdown win too. Congrats again to all our winners. If you want to be featured in our core report, drop your winning lineup in our Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value with all sports included for one low price. Once again, use the promo code TURKEY50 to knock 50% off your first payment on a monthly subscription. Sabersim add-on plans qualify for the discount too, so take advantage for a limited time while this deal lasts. While you're watching, hit that like button now. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Run Pure Sports, bringing to you the lineup building show. I'm here with our partner, Sabersim. We got Jordan here with us on Wednesday. Jordan, what's going on, my man?
Not a whole lot. Just looking forward to Thanksgiving, looking forward to this slate here. Excited to talk a little bit of football today. I actually think this is probably one of the more interesting Thanksgiving slates that we've had in a little while. I like these games quite a bit. I think there's also some interesting things going on with usage and target share trends with these teams. So I think there's a couple of angles to play. So just excited to break it down here.
Awesome. Good stuff. Because I've seen a lot of people kind of complaining about the slate. And it's like, look, we got football. It's Thanksgiving. We got to be thankful. Like, we got to get rid of the dogging on these matchups and stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about the 3-game NFL slate. We got the Bills, Lions, Giants, Cowboys, Patriots, Vikings that we are going to dive into, and we're going to focus and do a little screen share with Sabersim and walk you through our process. But first, we got a little bit of a house cleaning to do. We got, first off, we need everyone to hit the like button. It helps us out a ton. If you're not subscribed, you should be. There's a button. I believe it's a red button there in the corner. Click that. We also have a promo going on right now. A little Black Friday promo, but we're running it all week. Turkey 50, that's going to get you 50% off your first month here at Run Pure Sports. That includes Sabersim. Just massive, absolutely massive. It allows you to get in at a discounted price, and we have content all week. I mean, just such a valuable thing to take advantage of right now, just with how much stuff is going on between NFL, NBA, World Cup right now. I mean, there's just so much going on. So Turkey 15, 50% off your first payment. That includes Sabersim. Use it if you're not signed up. If you are signed up, awesome. We appreciate it. All right, Jordan, let's dive in. Like we do each and every week. I believe we're going to start with our base build, correct?
Yeah, cash build. I think that's a good place to start.
Cash build? Oh, I like it.
Yeah. And we'll build the top 500 optimals. What we're doing here, right, is we're basically going to use Sabersim as if it were just any other optimizer right now. Just build the best lineups based on the average projections. I think it's a great way to familiarize yourself with the slate. You'll get an idea of what a lot of people's lineups are going to look like, right? Kind of what the chalk's going to look like. And even for a 3-game football slate, when you first pull up the screen, there's a lot of data there. Projections, ownership, the advanced stats, the percentiles. It's a lot to look at. It's a lot to kind of familiarize yourself with what's going on. This is my favorite way to get an idea of just like what the slate looks like at a kind of high level here. So we'll do this one first, get a sense of where the chalk's going to be, what the popular builds are going to look like, and go from there.
Yeah, this is going to be good because actually it's my first time looking at the slate. So, which is normal because it's NBA season right now. We got 12 games tonight. We had a nice 4-game slate last night. So I'm really curious to see what the optimal is going to look like. And right out of the gate, I had to figure Josh Allen would be up top. It'll be interesting to see where the industry goes with Allen coming off 2 games where he's really under-delivered relative to expectations when we think about a guy like Josh Allen. So talk us through, we got the builds up now. We ran 500, pool of 500. Talk us through what you're seeing here, Jordan.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of start going through and get an idea of where I think the chalk is going to be. I mean, we have one team that bills here with a 32.5 implied total playing in Detroit in the Dome. So as you'd probably expect, right, a lot of the builds are going to center around Josh Allen stacks, very commonly with Diggs. Actually, probably, I think, a fair bit of Devin Singletary, Dawson Knox, right? I mean, Allen plus a bunch of pass catchers, getting Ramondre Stevenson on the running back there, and then the run back in that game, most commonly being Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think some combination of that core is going to soak up a ton of the ownership and the lineup constructions here. So we can kind of start thinking about ways we want to pivot from that. Another way we can just look at that here is top 500 lineups, right? 93% of them are Josh Allen Buffalo stacks, a very tiny bit showing up as Dallas stacks here. So I really do think we're going to be heading in a situation tomorrow where the obvious construction that jumps out to a lot of people, soaks up a lot of that ownership here, is just like basically Bills Onslaught's constructions.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because I agree with everything I'm seeing here as far as like what the cash optimal's doing. Obviously, it's more projections driven. And this first game, the Bills with a 32 implied team total, Lions 22.5. Obviously, the optimizers are going to just want to force as much of this game into the lineups as possible. So for your contrarian types, your tournament types, it presents a really interesting situation because it's going to be very easy to get different on a 3-game slate. And the NFL has been full. Oh, it's been kind of like a tale of 2 stories. We've seen like the chalk smash week after week after week. And then we get last week where it was like, even your contrarian types, I don't know how they won. Like, I don't see, like, even your natural pivots was not going to be successful on the slate last week. You had to just have like a few of those key guys like Najee Harris, Tony Pollard, etc. So what I'm getting at though is you can see teams put up a total like the Bills projected total is, but you can see it get there through crazy scripts. Like we saw, their kicker made how many field goals was that? Like 5 or 6?
Yeah, I think it was
Tyler
5.
Bass. Yeah, it was 6. Oh,
6 field goals.
6 field goals and an extra point. So there's scripts that can happen. I think this is going to be a good slate where we can, instead of like trying to just get off of this game, we can create some rules. Like I got a bunch in the back of my head that I'm already kind of thinking of, since the popular route is going to be to just force in as many plays from this game as possible. So I'm already liking this a little bit more because I think it's going to be a great present, us with a great route in tournaments. So, what do we want to do? Should we restart and should we start mapping out some rules? I like that.
So I think what we should do next actually here is run kind of another build before we start making changes, and this time to run it on the GPP settings just to see what kind of plays that the sim likes here. The cash build, especially on a small slate, is just going to be so concentrated, like 95% Josh Allen, that we don't even really get a sense of like what are some of the other plays, where are the other like upside options. So I think we should run one more build. This is what I would probably do if it was my process. The one thing I am going to do here is I'm going to turn the ownership fade off for this. You can see for the large field, the big stuff tomorrow, 50,000 entrants, 150 max, 20 max kind of stuff on a 3-game slate. This ownership fade is going to be really high by default. I think that's a good thing. I think you want to get different. You want to fade some of the chalk here. But for our research purposes, I just want to kind of see pure upside potential. I don't really want to overvalue ownership here for the research build. So I think we should just run one more build here, get an idea of where some other opportunities are.
Yeah, the other thing too is we've all season long we've talked about how the variance is so high on these Thursday game slates, and that's like Thursday evening, island showdown slates that we're usually talking about, Jordan, and then the games do end up like just panning out like being very, very bad or whatever. Now we get the chalkiest game that's not only on a Thursday short week, but it's the first game right out of the gate, right in the morning. And the Bills, I mean, yeah, they're the Bills. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. I was high on him last week. I was high on him the week before. But I don't know what it is, but if they're just not clicking at the level that we are accustomed to seeing them click at. They got the win last week. They looked good, but they kept the Browns kind of in that game. Who knows if it was just the short week, them, getting kind of taken out of their element with the storm that went through there. And then the game getting moved, obviously, but that's a lot of like travel. That's like very little practice time. And I don't know, those things do have an impact on how this game could play out. But the other side of it is, the other side that I see is like their defense hasn't looked as good. And we know Detroit's defense isn't that good. And so it's like it could play to the script that's being projected and that we see a lot of points here. So I'm a little torn right now, but I still think it's an interesting discussion point for the week.
I think the other thing too that's going on there is Josh Allen's playing at least a little bit hurt. I do see a situation where if the Bills get up early, that they kind of take it a little bit easier on him. I think his rushing upside is probably a little bit lower as well. When he's out there, you can just tell he loves playing football. He's going to run the ball hard. He's going to take some shots at it. But I do think if they're up 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, later in the game or something like that, the coach is just going to be like, hey, Josh, like stop running the ball, hand it off, that kind of thing. So I think that the very high end ceiling outcomes, assuming we get a game that doesn't stay close, are a little bit lower for him. So, but in this build here, right, 1,500 lineups on the GPP settings, right? These are sim optimals, 10 sim diversity in this case. Almost half of those lineups are still soaked up by Josh Allen and Bill Stack. So I think if we really want to get off of him or make that our big pivot point, we're gonna see that we're gonna have to reduce his projection just because of how much equity he's soaking up there. And that's kind of the main thing.
Hold on 1 second. I lost my my earpods. AirPods went out. Let me adjust this real quick. Sorry there, Jordan. Keep going if you can.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So I think, what I'm trying to do with this second build, right? Kind of the reason why the GPP build here is going to be the foundation for what will ultimately be our lineups, right? The cash build is what is the field going to do? What's the slate look like at a high level? The GPP build is kind of, what are our lineups going to start to look like? It gives me a sense of where I'm going to have to make adjustments if I want to get a particular construction, right? If I want it to be all in on Josh Allen stacks, you can tell just based on this right here, I'm not going to have to touch his projection. It's projected high enough. But if I want to make that a fade, I'm probably going to have to start dropping that projection down because he's soaking up 50% of the lineups in the pool. You can do similar things with some of these other players here, right? One player that I actually, we'll talk about this in a second, that I think is interesting to get under the field on here is Ramondre Stevenson. Another guy that's showing up in a lot of these top optimals. Might be a situation where we adjust a projection there as well. We can talk about that in a second. But AP, how you doing? Do we have you back here?
I believe so. Let's do a real quick test. Sound good?
You sound good to me.
All right, perfect. There's no echo or anything, right? I have to use my default mic and speakers now. So
sounds good to me.
Perfect. All All right, I missed a little bit of what you said, but we'll just keep going with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we should go back to the home screen now and kind of start making some adjustments here. I have some thoughts on some of the actual like individual game dynamics and team dynamics here for these teams, but curious, is there anything that you kind of want to touch on here first, or any like rules that are jumping to mind for you?
Yeah, so this is where I like a couple rules that come into play that I just think, when you think about who is going to get jammed in, like we're going to get a lot, like I was seeing a lot of Stephon Diggs and Davis in there. So one simple rule that we could create is, Diggs or Davis that will force us to separate those two guys, hoping that this isn't a Bills onslaught, that Allen locks on to either Davis or Diggs, which we've seen happen in the past. Sure, could both guys smash? They definitely could, but we're just trying to play and hone in on one spot that's going to get us leverage on the field. The other thing too is James Cook. This is a guy they like. And man, I think they trust in the backfield. Singletary obviously is still the main guy, but come on, it's the Lions. Maybe we get a spot where it's just like Cook is the guy that is the fortunate beneficiary of some goal line work or something like that. Maybe he's the guy that gets into the box. So he's a guy that I would want to factor in to that. The other thing too is playing on the fact that the Bills defense has kind of let down their guard a little bit over the last few weeks. Maybe that has something to do with less prep time. We've seen that happen this season. Maybe we look at I'm a little worried to say it, but maybe we look at Jared Goff on the other side. I mean, if Brissett can do what he did last week, you got to think that maybe there's the chance that Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown is the path that goes off. And that's where getting these running backs, like you could see Singletary again, or maybe it's Cook, like we talked about, and then you have Goff in there and you have Amon-Ra. This is just, and I'm just saying, like, we can go to the other games too. I'm just saying, if we think this game goes off, which it's likely to do, what's a different way to get leverage on the field, but still staying in this game? I think it's looking at the backup running back and Cook. I think it's separating out Diggs or Davis, creating that rule. And I think it's looking at the other side of the other side of the game here with Jared Goff. I know it's Jared Goff. I'm not real excited to go that route, but we're just talking about looking in tournaments, looking at these different builds to see what they look like. Outside of that, I mean, the other thing I'm looking at is Dak Prescott, and it has to be a situation where the Giants, I would think the Giants, after watching film, looking at what the Cowboys did in dismantling the Vikings, if I'm the Giants, my first thing I would want to do is slow down this running game, the running effect that the Cowboys have going on right now. And it would be, I want Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb to beat me, which they very well probably will do. But that would be actually my second quarterback I would have the most interest in on this slate, is Dak Prescott outside of Josh Allen. And then like Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins just staying on the quarterback spot there. I just if those guys beat me, they beat me. I think I would almost, maybe Kirk Cousins, but gosh, it's just like those quarterbacks just don't get there at a high enough clip. So I'm a little bit torn. I mean, it's going to be very hard to get away from Josh Allen on the slate. The floor ceiling combination is just so high. I mean, we saw an absolute floor game from him last week, and I even think he had somewhat of a floor in that Minnesota game, like those first two touchdowns were all Singletary. So it's going to be hard to get away from Allen here.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree. And I think there's some interesting things we can do with the projections on this team based on some trends that we've kind of been seeing here, and also that injury that he's dealing with, because I do think it brings down his rushing upside. I mean, one thing I totally agree, James Cook coming on, rookie, they clearly like him, clearly want to get him the ball. Another name, they traded for Nyheim Hines at the deadline. At some point, he's going to get a little bit of a bigger role in this offense. I think it's a talented weapon that they want to get in the game. I think he's going to have some expectations of getting some run. I feel like this team is moving more towards kind of a three-headed monster at running back here, and I'd rather be like ahead of trying to project that than behind it after we see that develop this week. So, I mean, one thing that I think is kind of just an interesting angle here is to to drop down Josh Allen's projection a little bit, just to say, you know, that ceiling rushing upside isn't really there, because I don't think the coaches are going to want him running the ball as much. And to kind of play this as a little bit more of a three-headed monster between these three running backs, Singletary, Cook, and I'm willing to give Hines a pretty healthy boost to his projection and make sure that he's showing up in my builds here. It's 3 games. The contests are massive. You got to take some shots here on some of these guys where, you know, there might be a little bit of additional upside. The one other thing I think you can do to get a little bit different with the Bills in particular, it seems like they're maybe moving a little bit away from Isaiah McKenzie here. He had his lowest snap share of the season last week. I think reducing his projection here a little bit and sharing some of that to either, you know, getting a little bit of Dawson Knox in there, or actually Khalil Shakir, another rookie that I think just has at least a little bit of upside, a guy that I want at least to show up in my builds a little bit, gives you start to have some routes of playing Bills stacks, but in more unique ways than the field is going to do.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Actually, like James Cook, the snap count was a little bit lower than what we saw in week 9. So Singletary is the main guy, but I still like the call on James Cook. He has gotten some high value opportunities, it looks like, as well. So you got to think that's there. Then what's your thoughts too, guy? Go like sticking on the running back spot.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift versus Jamal Williams. I think that's another spot where everyone's high on Williams right now, but we see with these teams, it could be a DeAndre Swift week. Like if he's just like feeling good, gets in the box the first time, maybe has his swagger back. It would not surprise me at all if we saw more DeAndre Swift, even though, you know, it's been the Jamal Williams show too. And keep in mind, it's a 3-game slate. We're trying to find paths to maintain, you know, an optimal optimal build route, but also by just getting different and maximizing kind of our leverage there. And with people higher on a guy like Jamal Williams, I don't know, might be an interesting time to project Swift. Maybe, and we could do it like projection based, okay? So we could do it by just like altering the projection on Swift and making him higher than Jamal Williams to see if he hits any builds. Then the other thing too is like in the Cowboys situation, we've seen Tony Pollard. I mean, Pollard is the lead back here. I mean, everyone agrees on that. Like, I don't think it's even close, but it's still a split backfield. If the Giants come in with a script that says, hey, we're not going to let these running backs beat us, which I think it's probably what they do, we could see both of these guys underwhelm. And so I wouldn't be against under projecting both of the running backs in the Cowboys spot too, since I do think Pollard is going to be a guy that gets a lot of ownership here. And then on the other side too, I mean, this is just a tough matchup for Saquon. And so he would be a guy that I would look at, because Saquon's going back to that cash build. Were we getting a lot of Saquon in our lineups? Do you remember? I should have.
No, I actually don't think so. I think he's priced up pretty high there. I think this is a slate where there's not a lot of value. I think the mid-range at running back is going to be a little bit more popular there. Ramondre Stevenson, Singletary, Pollard, I think are going to be the guys people get to. Even Dalvin Cook is pretty tough to get to there. Those guys just above 7K at the running back position is going to be tough here unless, you know, we get some surprise value open up.
This is like, I mean, talk about the different backup running backs on the slate. I mean, there's 3 spots where the backup gets, you know, a lot of work. I mean, going to the Patriots, we could definitely make the same case with Damian Harris. He actually looked good when he was out there on the field last week. And it was like, sure, Ramondre is still the number 1 guy, but again, it's a 3-game slate. We're talking ways to get a little bit different. We could do that same thing. We could place Damian Harris's projection in line with Stevenson or slightly above it. And, you know, just looking at the price difference there, obviously, maybe what we do is more so keep them aligned from a projection standpoint, because if we project them over Stevenson, we're probably not going to get any Stevenson in there. I totally agree with that one. I mean, Patriots running backs, right? Like tale as old as time. Damian Harris looks healthy to me, and I would not be surprised to see that become a little bit more of a split backfield again there. At least a lot of that first and second down work going to Harris, high value goal line touches, that kind of stuff. So that's one of my favorite
favorite plays here on the slate is to get a little bit over on Harris and under on Ramondre Stevenson.
The other thing that we could do, just playing on kind of scripts that we all kind of know, we know Belichick likes to take away the number one, so we could under project Jefferson, we could over project Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, or even Dalvin Cook too. Dalvin Cook, another guy that I just think kind of falls under. Like if you just are looking at box scores, it's not like he's crushed this season. He's had some good weeks for sure, but it's not like he is, blowing us away. Like I think if you're spinning up at the running back spot, you would most would rather go to Saquon Barkley. So, man, like on the surface when looking at the slate, I mean, you could do the same thing with like a Michael Gallup. I know he's having a tough year too, but these kind of like number twos, I think, are going to be the way to get different on the slate. Like looking at guys like Adam Thielen, Michael Gallup, and then even like Gabe Davis. And then if we create some of those rules where instead, like with how everyone loves to stack, maybe what we do, Jordan, is go against that principle, separating out and creating some rules to where it's like, we already got the Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis one. We could do a CD Lamb or Michael Gallup. We could do a Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen. Instead of like embracing the full on like stacking, we don't, and we pick and choose and to get some kind of uncorrelation in our lineups, if that makes sense. I don't know if you like that route or not. I'm just kind of thinking of ways off the top of my head to get a little bit different.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to overstack now. Like everything's all about stacking, correlation, and all of this. In a simple way, it's just get uncorrelated and kind of pick and choose some of these pieces into your lineup. I think in larger field tournaments, that could be an interesting route on a 3-game slate.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's an interesting angle here. I'm actually just going to save that as a rule and just kind of see what we think of that. But I think at least to just experiment with here. I think that's an interesting angle.
What type of rule did you make? So you made I
made an automatic group rule here, and I basically said use no more than one primary player on the team for wide receiver or tight ends, right? So basically it's going to limit us to like QB plus one as our biggest stack here. I think, at least we can experiment with this and see what the list looks like too. I think you're playing a little bit of a game script angle here where you're almost saying, none of these 3 games shoot out enough where
exactly
like a big stack is viable. And I kind of like that.
Jordan, we could see that. This is a Thursday slate. And the highest projected total is like the first game out in the morning. Like I'm almost tempted to fire an unders bet on the 54.5 total, just because we've seen all season long these games end up being sloppy, and just factoring in the Bills situation where all the travel they've had to do, the snowstorm, they had to do virtual practices and stuff there, the previous week due to the snowstorm. Who knows? I mean, maybe the Lions show up. Maybe we just see all of these games, maybe they all end up sucking. And by creating some of these rules like we have, I think in a spot where the games do kind of underwhelm versus what the Vegas thinks the projections are going to, how the games are going to play out, that's how we would be winning in this scenario, I think. So, are we ready to produce a build here to see what we're looking at, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should run one and see how things are looking. One thing I am going to do, I'm going to continue, because we're making so many intentional changes to player projections and these game scripts. I'm going to continue to keep ownership fade a little bit lower here and just see what the builds are looking like in that case. I don't want to ignore it completely, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I think leaving the ownership fade at a default setting of 7 or something like that here would be a good idea if you didn't really have a sense of, what particular stance you wanted to make or what fades you wanted to make on your own. Sabersim will help fade the chalk a little bit for you. But since AP and I here are being really intentional with where we're taking stands, I'm going to drop that down a little bit, because I don't want to double count that, right? We already dropped Justin Jefferson's projection a little bit. I don't also want ownership fade to fade him way more than that. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's just see how things are looking here.
Yeah, I like it. The other way to get different is the Giants receivers. I think just, man, Slayton's going to get all the attention from this elite Cowboys defense. So it might be a spot where you look at Richie James or Isaiah Hodgins, just, as two you could look at. I think some will look at Kenny Golladay. He's been terrible though. Like he's been so bad. Like if he was going to get steamed up at all, he would be a guy I'd much rather be under on. So, all right, you got Hines in there, Damian Harris. So 2 backup running backs. You got CeeDee Lamb, spend up, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra. I like how that's looking. It's not as full on stacked.
Yeah. This is looking pretty good right off the bat. I mean, I think one thing that's interesting to go and do here is to dig in and look at some of these names that we did pump up and just make sure that, we're getting them at the amount we're comfortable with. I mean, Damian Harris, I'm okay taking a big stand on a guy like this on a 3-game NFL slate when you're trying to beat out, 150,000 lineups. But 60% Damian Harris is quite a bit at a guy that you're getting in 4% of your build. So I think this would be an opportunity to fine tune. I also do definitely want to shout out again the Min Uniques tool. I think this is one of the coolest things we've added recently. It's simple, but it's really effective. We can naturally start to diversify our lineups a little bit more here by increasing this. So if we say, increase Min Uniques to 3, you're going to see all these are going to drop a little bit. We're going to make sure that all of our lineups are at least 3 players different from each other. So you've got this pool of 150 that take all these stands and fades where we want them to be. But we're getting 3 unique players in every single lineup. It means you're going to be a little bit more spread out in your results there. So I think that can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, it's just looking at it. It's going to be so hard to get away from Josh Allen. Just looking at what Danny Dimes did to him last week, or did to the Detroit Lions last week, 29 DK points. I mean, what's the other argument here? It's you lock in Allen and then what? Use these rules to just get different with the other side of your build. Maybe like a script, because we know, all right, so if people are playing Allen, they're gonna, like, no one's playing him naked. So this is like one of the times where, and I'm not saying we should play him naked. I'm just saying you could make the argument, right? Isn't that a thing that you could do? And or pair him with like a James Cook or a Nyheim Hines.
Yeah.
It's like you got a weird script out there. But what I'm getting at is kind of what we've been saying is no one's going to play Josh Allen like naked. Everyone's going to stack him, and most are going to stack him with 2 at least. So that's another way to get a little bit different, I think, on this slate too, as something to consider.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if we go back to that cash build, I do think the most common way that Allen's going to be used is in kind of an onslaught type construction, right? We're going to see like, Bills +4 even on a 3-game slate, Bills +3. I think that's going to be the most. So I do like the angle here, even dropping his projection by almost 5 points, which is what we did in this build here. That rule we set to not use more than 1 wide receiver or tight end here is going to force us to play him in a little bit more of a creative way, right? Where we're playing, the just Diggs, right? Or Diggs plus Nyheim Hines, which I think is kind of the interesting guy as you mentioned here. So I think that's one way to get different. I think, in this case, you're playing the game script where, maybe Allen accounts for, I don't know, 2 or 3 touchdowns, rushes for 1, throws 1 to Hines, throws 2 to Davis, and all of a sudden you've got something going there, as opposed to just the entire Bills offense going off. So I like that. I also would be interested to like explore the idea of fading him a little bit more. But I think we found kind of a creative way to play Allen lineups that are a little bit different here. So.
Yeah, and our guy Swoop in chat, makes a good point. You can make an argument for just about anything in DFS. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
And, hey, the purpose of this show is we're just getting in. We're showing everyone how to use Sabersim. And if you haven't used Sabersim, we're running a promo right now. Turkey 50 is going to get you 50% off your first payment over here at Run Beer Sports. That is Turkey 50. All one word. Use that, sign up, come check it out. Come use our content and use it in coordination with the Sabersim tool that we're showing you right here. And yeah, like, man, you can, like, we're trying to just find ways to get different, to give everyone else ideas on how to attack some of these large field tournament contests that we're going to be in. I mean, if we know the public is going to just jam in that first game, what we're trying to do is how do we not fade that game? Like, how do we get pieces from that game that allow us to still be optimal, but bring in other pieces from the other game? I like some of the settings. Like when I think about what quarterbacks could beat Allen, because like the more I think about it now, there's no way I'm fading Josh Allen on this slate with these quarterbacks, but it would be Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott would be someone I would have a ton of interest in double stacking. I think Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, and then you could bring in Michael Gallup, or you could bring in Dalton Schultz and overstack that. That would be something I would be very in favor of. That's another guy. Actually, all of these games are going to be in domes, so the play environment is going to be elite in each one.
Mm-hmm.
So Dak is the one guy that I could see putting up a score very similar to Josh Allen. Danny Dimes may be like, it's a week-to-week thing. We've seen like Dallas look so elite last week. They're coming off a high. Maybe they overlook the Giants here, and maybe Danny Dimes runs 2 in. He's another guy. Like I don't it's probably a reach saying he could like compete, put up a score to Josh Allen. But if he rushes 2 in somehow and maybe throws 1 in, that would be the only way. Or you see just a really crazy game script from the Bills and Lions would be the other ways. Otherwise, like I don't see Mac Jones it's tough to see Jared Goff too, at all being able to compete with like an Allen or Dak Prescott. So as I just sit here and kind of condense things in my head, I don't know. I'm kind of honing in on Dak Prescott and Josh Allen and then finding ways to get different. I like the backup running backs. I think I would go Cook over Hines, though, Jordan. And then it's, I think I would be looking at the Damian Harris against the Vikings. I mean, we saw the Cowboys run all over that team. So, and we know the Patriots absolutely love to use their running backs. Is there a situation where you're going to jam in, since it's a 3-game slate, we saw double running backs just smashed, well, Pollard and Zeke last week.
Mm-hmm.
We have a situation where we know Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, they're going to be heavily involved. We know Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, they're going to be heavily involved. We know Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, heavily involved here. Is there any way that you're double stacking running backs from the same team since it's a 3-game slate? Or do you think that's just not optimal at all?
I definitely think it's viable. I don't think it's something that I would force. I don't know unless I'm playing maybe just a couple lineups and I particularly want to really hit that angle. But I'm not going to avoid it. I know there are some people out there that do create rules week to week where you're saying, max 1 running back from a given team, which I think does make some sense on a bigger NFL Sunday main slate. If you use that kind of rule, I would definitely pull it down for this because 1, it's 3 games, but 2, a lot of these teams are very comfortable using multiple running backs. I would not be surprised to see, multiple running backs from a given team involved for 4 or 5 of these teams. Even, Cook and Barkley have had pretty insane usage all year, but Breida and Madison have gotten some higher value touches in recent weeks here. I think, we're getting to the point of the season where some of those teams want to preserve their kind of running back ones a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those guys sneak into the end zone either. And you don't need much on a 3-game slate, especially if scoring stays low, to find yourself in the top 1%. So I'm totally comfortable playing multiple running backs from the same team this week.
Yeah, I like it. It might be a little thin, but I think if you're building 150, it's something that I wouldn't like exclude from my scripts. Mm-hmm. The other thing I think of here, Jordan, is one simple thing, and I love doing this, is just if you go back to that home screen, I don't know if you can do that real quick.
Yeah.
And maybe you already did this when I was adjusting my headphones, but one thing that we could do is look at the stack types, and we could just say, so if you click the stack types, 0.
I refreshed on accident. 1 sec. It'll.
Yeah, you're good. And what we could do is just say we could go QB +2. We could go we could cap it at QB +2 plus 1 or 2 run backs. Get rid of the QB +3s, because I think when I look back at that the cash settings build that we ran, we're getting very, very overstacked lineups.
Yeah.
So what we could do is do exactly what Jordan's doing here, limit it to, and then actually keep the naked. I don't think any builds are going to come, but the naked QB, yep. Because I mean, Allen, like maybe runs 2 in, who knows? And maybe James Cook gets a rushing touchdown, maybe Singletary, maybe like the Bills. Let's just say you're thinking about it from a very, very heavy macro viewpoint. Let's just say they get 4 touchdowns in this game. Let's say they get 2 field goals to hit over their implied team total of 32 points. Let's just say Josh Allen runs 2 in. Let's say Singletary runs 1 in and Cook runs 1 in. I mean, that's in, like, it's a reach, sure, but that's in the realm of possibilities of outcomes. And if that happens, it would be like an Allen naked plus, running it back with like a
right,
or someone from the other side. I mean, we're just thinking about ways to get really, really different in large field tournaments, but I don't know. You could see that happening. I mean, if you're in cash games and, or small single entry or 3 max, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want Allen. You're going to want Allen to Diggs, maybe even Gabe Davis. And you're going to want a run back of Amon-Ra, more so what we projected out in that cash settings build. But in that contest, which I haven't pulled it up yet, but I imagine there's going to be 300,000 entries.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get a little bit crazy. And that's what we're trying to do here, is figure out what's the craziest path without absolutely just sacrificing our floor and ceiling. We don't want to just build a bad build. We want to build a good build in a unique way. And so I think that there's so many different ways to do that using Sabersim here.
Yeah.
I like that you did 1,500 too, because it'll be interesting to see if you go to stack types, because you can see now so no QB stack. Yeah. So if you all right, so if you want to get unique, we know right out of the gate, run a QB out there naked, run Josh Allen out there naked. I guarantee you're going to have a unique build. I don't even know, like, just thinking about this, like, I don't even know how you would run a Josh Allen naked build. It would have to have like Amon-Ra. It would have to have CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. It would have to have your big pieces from these other games. And I still don't think you could even fit all of those in there. But
yeah, none of those are even coming in with Josh Allen. These are all, so I did limit the QB pool based on what you said. So this is only Dak and Josh Allen now here. Okay. So all of those naked stacks are just Dak. And I think that's a pricing thing. He's, almost 2,000 cheaper. So it's a little bit cheaper to use.
Okay. So we did get a naked build, but it's with a bring back, right?
Yeah.
That makes, okay. I want to see what those look like. The QB with like 1 run back or 2.
Oh yeah. Here, let me do this one. So
even though I love seeing that too, because those are going to be super unique. I mean, they might not even be optimal at all. Like if you're running like with this and just taking that's going to be your stance. Don't do that. We're just trying to highlight ways to get different with this show. And I think that's one unique way that you'll definitely have a unique build in there.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it, I mean, you need so my problem with that is, gosh, like the Giants defense. I mean, you need an absolute letdown. All right, here's another thing too, is I'm fine with playing a defense against the quarterback on the slate, because if any one of these teams has a pick 6 or a scoop and score, they're likely to be very optimal. And it doesn't mean that the opposing quarterback is not going to be optimal. If anything, it increases the opportunities for that quarterback, as long as they aren't throwing multiple picks and as long as they have the ability to put up points, which obviously Dak Prescott and the Cowboys do. So in that script, you're like banking on the Giants defense to get an early pick 6, I think, to put them in a spot to come back. But again, like I said with the Cowboys, I would much rather have Dak plus 2 pieces in a script like that. So I think for something like that to work, we'd probably need a few additional rules in there.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely think playing a quarterback against the opposing defense is viable here. Or if you want to turn that off, you can. You can turn that toggle off here. It's on by default in the build settings for 3-game slates.
I would keep it on this slate for sure. I would not take that off. Most people, your hand builders out there, they're never going to play a defense against their quarterback. Never. So again, that's a way on a slate like this just to easily get a little bit different I still think, given the slate, you're going to have to take a little bit further. And like what I'm going to do though is like just going through this. So I'm probably going to end up right where you're at with Dak and with Josh Allen as the two quarterbacks. I mean, in your opinion, what's the third that you could make a case for? Danny Dimes, maybe?
I think Kirk Cousins is interesting there as well. I'll probably in 150 have a little bit of exposure to all four of these top guys. If I get to
Tom Cousins, though, we should be bumping up the Patriots defense, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an angle. I do think, people were talking about this Vikings offense as, a pretty powerful force here up until last week where they get shut down by the Cowboys. I think the true value of this offense is probably still a little bit in between those two extremes. Everybody's ready to throw Kirk Cousins back into the fire now here.
Isn't that crazy? And so playing on that, Jordan, like this is what I love about the NFL, because everyone thinks in a mindset of, oh, what did you do for me recently? What did you do for me last week? Oh, that's going to be the same thing that happens. Now you got the Cowboys looking like gods out there, looking crazy, crazy good. It's a letdown spot. It's a short week. What if the Giants show up and are the more motivated team and hand it to them? I mean, those are the scripts that you should be thinking about. Because it's like, man, what if the Giants win? What does that type of game look like? I think if the Giants are going to win, it's like a 23-20 type of game. They're not winning a shootout against this Dallas team, and it probably means that they're forcing some turnovers. So I'd have interest in like the Giants defense in that script. And then the Vikings too, you could see a huge, bounce back from the Vikings, because I do think the Vikings are like what we saw last week. I think that team, just you throw it away and you move on, right? Like that was not who the Vikings were. That was a team coming off their biggest win of the season so far against the Bills on the road, and just it was a letdown spot. It was a complete letdown spot. They got absolutely pummeled. They had no answers. A team like the Vikings, though, you got to think that they bounce back. And then it's going to come down to the Bills-Lions, which is going to be the most interesting game, and it's going to garner the most ownership too on the slate. So, man, you are right. This does set up to be a really fun, a really interesting Thanksgiving slate with a lot of different routes, a lot of different scripts that you could build out. All right. So I'm a little bit different. I love mapping out my scripts. Like, so talking back to NBA, one thing that I do is, let's just say I'm doing my 3-max strategy. I will have my base set of projections, and I always adjust them myself to what I feel is optimal after averaging out the Sabersim and RPS one. So what that means is, like yesterday, I ended up locking like Anthony Davis, and I thought his projections were off by about 8 points across the industry. And so I bumped him up 10 points. And so like, that's what I'm saying when I make my own adjustments. But then I run that build and I will look through those, and typically I will plug in whatever I feel is my favorite. And that's often how I produce my core out there. And then what I'll do is I'll run some other scripts. So in that build, what I'll do is I'll adjust something. I'll say, okay, maybe like yesterday it was Devin Booker. Maybe he has an off day. Maybe we go to a campaign or someone else, and I'll bump them up. And so I rerun that script. So I'm creating different game scripts within it. Is there a way to do that in Sabersim, or is it more of a manual process?
I mean, so it kind of depends. I mean, I think if you want to like play with the team totals and adjust player projections on the home screen, you'll have to, make adjustments, run a build. I would probably name that build something like, Vikings, onslaught or something like that, whatever game script you're playing, and then adjust again. We are actually kicking around some ideas of giving you the ability to create multiple home screens. So you could create one and say, this is for that, and then I'm going to create another one and do that, and you could go back and see them. At the moment, you would kind of have to like create your first game script, run a build, and then go back to the home screen and readjust just from there. If I'm understanding you correctly. I mean, obviously you can go in and go ahead.
How I do it right now, like when I've maxed the milli on weekends, I'll just relate it in terms like this. What I'll do is like I'll chop the 150 builds into, for easy purposes, let's say 3 ways. So I'm gonna have 3 different scripts. So my first 50 let's just say it is going to be a Bills onslaught. A Bills onslaught. I'm fully embracing all in on Allen for those 50, all in stacking them heavy with run backs. My second script would be maybe a Dallas Cowboys letdown spot. Maybe the Giants come in motivated. I'm bumping down Dallas, like their team total to like 17, like really, really drastic change there. I'm bumping up the Giants a little bit. And so that would be one of the scripts. And then maybe my third script is, a Lions win or a Vikings bounce back. And so that would be my next 50 builds. That's kind of what I'm talking about from different game scripts. I like doing that on these smaller slates too, where it's just you're trying to capture different ways that the slate could play out that none of us are really thinking about. Like, I don't think anyone's thinking about like a scenario where the Cowboys lose. I don't think anyone's thinking about a scenario where the Bills lose. But what we almost saw the Eagles lose back-to-back games. We almost saw like the Bills let the Browns kind of into that game for a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of variance out there. Like, people are probably giving the Patriots a chance here. No one's thinking the Vikings are going to come in and blow this team out after what they saw last week. So what I'm trying to do is capture some of the variance with different build scripts.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing you could kind of do there as well is you could like create basically a trigger player for that particular script of the rule. So for example, you could say, if Jared Goff is in the lineup, then I want that lineup to be a particular, game script of this game. Maybe it's a shootout, right? Where you get a very high scoring game. And you could say, must have at least 4 secondary players and put like, Amon-Ra, Swift, maybe Khalif Raymond, and also some Bills players in there, right? So Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Dawson Knox. Oops, I messed that up. Hang on, let me fix that real quick here. So we could basically use at least 4 of this list. And basically you're saying, rather than having to go back to the home screen and adjust projections and do everything, you're basically just telling Sabersim, if you're going to build me some Jared Goff lineups, I want them to be like total shootouts, game goes way over, really close kind of build. And you could do the same thing with Daniel Jones, right? Maybe with a different game script. So you could say like, if I'm going to use Daniel Jones, I want no Cowboys because I'm playing the game where, the Cowboys disappoint. Daniel Jones, throws for 1 and runs for 2 and that kind of build or something like that. So I think that would be the other way of going about it rather than going back and adjusting projections every time, but multiple ways to do things in Sabersim. So whatever kind of feels more comfortable there. Oh, you're on mute, AP.
Yeah, I knew I'd do it. So it looked like, and maybe, so I was just, Matt Breida, like, maybe it was just like when I was, watching Red Zone, seemed like he was getting some really good opportunities there. Obviously, Saquon is the guy, but with how just like, gosh, with how, I mean, who knows with the receiver situation there, with what the Giants are going to do, maybe they find a way to work in a guy like Matt Breida. So I don't know. I think the running backs are really interesting on this slate. I think 3 running back builds is going to be something I look at very hard as well. Just when you look at the dynamics of this team, Cowboys love to rush the ball. Patriots love to rush the ball. The Vikings, I mean, they do prefer default to be like a running team. Bills, they've been more of a rush heavy team lately. We know the Lions love to use the running backs. So I think that's the other important point. And going back to that cash build, I'll have to rerun it. And if you have Saber out there, you can easily rerun what we ran. Because I want to see how many three running back build, like how common 3 running back build is versus like 4 wide receivers or double tight end out there. Because I'm leaning towards that 4 running back route as of right now. As we're winding down, do you have any final takeaways with using Sabersim for this slate? Is there any new stuff coming out with Saber that we should be aware of?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that we have been working on, people have been asking for a while, is the ability to filter lineups post build and actually like eliminate them. So I know we do the player pool filters pretty often and go and look at those lineups, but people have asked, I want to trash all my lineups that are over a certain ownership, under a certain projection. You can do that kind of stuff with a rule right now. But the advantage of doing it after the build is that you're not affecting the sims in that way. So you're letting the sims go to work and then just trimming your pool from there. So that feature is coming soon. I would say final thoughts for this slate tomorrow, if you're using Saber, one is embrace the variance, right? If you're building on default settings, you're going to see some weird plays in there. You're going to see some weird constructions, QB versus defense, 2 running backs from the same team, double tight end. It's a 3-game football slate. You're trying to beat out, 100,000 other lineups. If you're playing the large field stuff, you got to be comfortable doing that kind of stuff tomorrow. So I'd throw out your rules of thumb and try to find a couple ways to get different.
Right. I agree 100%. And the other thing I was just looking at, it looks like the Bills defense is starting to get a little bit more healthy. So that's going to be something to monitor as well. But gosh, I mean, my takeaway on this slate is, the Bills, they're going to be chalk and probably good chalk, but I still think it's optimal to find ways to capture different game scripts. Like thinking about, okay, the Bills are likely to score 30 points. What's the different ways that they could score these points? Through the running backs, field goals, like we saw last week. It could be a spot where Allen locks on Gabe Davis. We've seen that happen, and where Steph Diggs gets left out. We could see him lock on Steph Diggs, him have a big game. You could see full onslaught. Now, those are all in the realm of possibilities. The key is go with what you feel, though. Go with what you feel is the most optimal route. Try to lock in on that. If you're MMEing, capture as much of that as you can. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. You move on to the main slate, which we have on Saturday. But when I look at this, I think on the surface, I see the Vikings bouncing back in a big way. I think the Giants-Cowboys game, I think there's a decent chance that that's more of a defensive battle and kind of a slugfest there. I think the Bills game starts out slow, and I think in Discord, people are going to be kind of tilting like, oh, why did we go all in on this game, blah, blah, blah. But I see that game picking up in the second half and it being one of those spots where the players end up getting there, but it's going to come late. It's going to come in the second half. So it's just too much firepower on that Bills side. So with that in mind, it's just, man, for me, I'm going to be focused in on Josh Allen. I'm going to be focused in on Dak Prescott. And then, the defense is going to be the other spot to where we could potentially get different. I'm fine playing a defense against a quarterback. What's actually real quick, you pull up defenses? I don't even have their prices in front of me. I think we got 3 more minutes. So
yeah. And I actually think defense is kind of interesting here because it's going to be one of the ways to save a couple dollars and not sacrifice too much projection. I actually weirdly could see the Lions and Giants defense coming in a little bit higher on than we're projecting, just because they're much cheaper. And again, the projection difference isn't going to be that much. So interesting angle there. I think I would not be surprised to see people just say, you know what, I'm not playing the Cowboys, I'm not playing the Bills defenses because they're too expensive, and them going a little bit under owned relative to what we got here.
Oh, really? Like I was going to say, I could see people just locking in the Cowboys defense because their defense is just incredible. Like there's
a name value there too. I think that's kind of like definitely the narrative. I think there's just so little value on the slate. I think this would be an interesting thing here to look at real quickly before, if we look at the top value plays, right? And because we're wrapping up, I'm going to reset all these projections. I just want to see this totally straight up here. The QBs are the top value plays here. Then Amon-Ra, who's going to pop up a ton. And then like cheaper tight ends that there's just not really that like cheap guy that makes builds easy this week. So I think people are really going to be trying to save salary and finding any way to do it. But yeah, well, I could be wrong there.
I don't think people are going to play like the Lions defense, right?
Well, if we go back, since
they're cheap.
This is what made me think that if we go back to that cash build here, we actually saw that the Lions are the most popular build showing up in cash, right? Because they're 2,100. It just facilitates like maximizing projected points. The Giants pop up there quite a bit. You are going to have to be pretty intentional and really want to play the Cowboys and Bills defenses to go get them, because optimizers are not going to give those defenses to people. I think they're just too expensive for their projections. So if people want them building by hand, bumping up projection, I think you can get there. But I I actually would not be surprised to see these cheaper defenses be a little bit more popular.
Gotcha. So, hey, another way to get potentially different is X out those cheap defenses and just play that script. And I think what that's going to do is force in some of these backup running backs that we weren't hating on to get some value, or it's going to force in some of these wide receiver twos, Gabe Davis, Khalif Raymond or DJ Shark, whoever it is for Lions. I got to look at snap shares from last week.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Gallup, another one, Adam Thielen, like we talked about. So I do think there are some interesting wide receiver plays out there that could potentially provide some salary relief. I mean, the other thing too is like if a guy like Richie James gets in the box or has himself a day, or like any of these cheap Giants receivers, that's gonna catapult you up a little bit too. And so those are the other things to be thinking about, I think, on a 3-game slate. So Jordan, we're running up on the top of the hour, so we need to get out here. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a lot over here at Rumpier Sports. We do have a promo going on right now, Turkey 50. That's going to get you 50% off your first month. That includes Sabersim, exactly what we went over right now. So if you haven't checked out that package, go over to the website, sign up, Turkey 15, use that code. Give me one player or one take. We'll each do that, and then we'll get out of here, Jordan. Favorite play or take on tomorrow's Thanksgiving slate?
I think I'm going to go with Damian Harris. I think he's going to return to at least a little bit more of an involved role in that backfield. I think Belichick wants to split that backfield up. I don't think he wants that lead back guy there. I'll give you a double one. That one I have a little bit more like of an argument for, just because he's coming back from injury. The guy I think that could potentially just come in lower owned and just break the slate is Justin Jefferson. He's 200 more than Stephon Diggs. He's going to project lower than Stephon Diggs around the industry. The Vikings have a 10-point lower total than the Bills. And the upside is obviously there. I would take the under on 31 percentage points owned there, and I would probably take the over on his projected points. So I think that's an interesting angle there, is like direct leverage off of Diggs too.
I am going to go with, so I've gone back and forth. I'm going to go with the Cook, but not James. I'm going to go Dalvin Cook. I think maybe
like
just
that too.
A little bit overlooked here. And I love, like, my other one I was thinking of was DeAndre Swift, who I like too. I love the running backs tomorrow. I think on a short week, we get simplified scripts from these teams. I think a lot of these games start out a little bit slower, and then you see some fireworks towards the end. But if you just look at Cook, man, he's been running good. 6.5 yards per carry last week against Dallas. 8.5 yards per carry the week before against the Bills. I think he's averaged like 5.6 or something on the season. He's running good. I think maybe the Vikings go back to the roots a little bit and give the ball to Cook in this matchup, especially if the Patriots are trying to take away Justin Jefferson, which I do like Justin Jefferson too. I just think Vikings defense plus a Dalvin Cook script is something that I'm going to be a big fan of tomorrow against the Patriots. All right, Jordan, with that, I think we end it there. Really good show. Pumped for the slate tomorrow. I'm AP. That's Jordan. Simon, get us out of here.